I spent 1,000 days building up an Amevian empire in Songs of Syx. My main goal was to unlock the admin building, as I had never done this in version 69. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the video. Day 0, I set up my map in a warm climate and added smaller islands around me to ensure my neighbours are too small and submissive to do anything. I made sure that they have some resources to tax at least, by adding some mountains and some forests. I chose a map with a good fresh water and ocean supply to start with. Day 1, I start with the basics: a few roads, a warehouse, a large fishery, some basic services, and a janitor, all in a naturally messy way, because I'm quite quirky like that. I also build a large egg farm and place research points to boost food production right away. Knowing food fulfillment was one of the easiest ways to ensure stability, I made sure to get this done right away. Day 2, being disappointed that my Amevians were too lazy, the fishery had not been built yet, so I decided to build another road and a woodcutter, as my neighbour had kindly donated some chairs to our cause. Then soon enough, I made a carpenter to kickstart my furniture supply. This would be useful as furniture is needed to build a hunter and many other buildings that can be used to supply an unholy amount of food early game. Day 3, being the greedy bastard that I was, I then added another woodcutter to meet the demand of the carpenter, as I had a negative surplus. I then added a food stall, since reptilians like talking to cashiers for some reason. Weirdos. Day 5, I added a mass grave right in front of the throne for a royal view. Amevians don't like living next to dead bodies, so even in this game you need to store dead bodies, as new people won't move in if they see them. Day 6, I also decided to expand the road north to the closest clay deposit, as this will be used later for gaining innovation points that will be used to unlocking upgrades and improving industry efficiency. Day 7, I added more housing, as I'd noticed that I had a high homeless population, and housing can be used to protect your plebs from heat waves and the cold. Day 8, I could finally upgrade the warehouse, as I had enough furniture. This enabled me to store 3 times more food. Oh yeah, I was also gifted with 20 swords from another neighbour, but I kindly refused because that would have just lowered my opinion rating with him even more, and opinion ratings are used for gaining trade access, and if your opinion goes beneath 1.5 you won't be able to have trade, and in early game I couldn't be asked to build embassies right away to get that value up, so yeah. Day 9, I decided to build an additional road through the mountains to the nearby stone, coal and ore deposits. Oh yeah, I also decided to build 2 tailors, one for clothes, one for leather armor. This would be useful for military power and encouraging more immigrants to entry, please. Day 10, nothing, just boring fast forwarding. Day 11, I added some torches cause fuck it. They actually increased lore by making it easier to spot murders, I guess. This is an actual in-game feature. Day 13, I let more immigrants in, as I'm low on workers. Immigration is dictated by how happy everyone is. This gets harder the higher the population you have. Day 15, I add another globulin pasture, as lizards love eating eggs. Oh yeah, I then added another fishery, as the amount of food I was consuming was about to reach the amount of food I was producing. Day 17, I added a market to the side of the road to physically give the plebs clothing and for immersion purposes. Day 18, I added another road and a woodcutter cause I was bored. Day 19, to prevent everyone from wearing diapers ever again, cause that's disgusting, I decided to build some public toilets. This also improves health and happiness. Day 21, to prevent people from buying items I need for now, I disabled markets from taking furniture and other items from the warehouse. Day 23, I added another woodcutter. On day 26, when I checked to see how much fish there was on the northwest side of the map, I decided to extend the tunnels further to reach the stone deposits, as it looked like my workers had finally completed the other tunnels.
Day 27, I added another one. On day 28, I decided I had the population and the resources to build a new settlement by the clay deposits. I didn't bother using haulers, as this was a perfect time to also continue overfishing the ocean and farming eggs. This is basically a localized city design, where people don't need to really walk that far to get food. I didn't feel like establishing a transport network just yet, so yeah. On day 29, I continued the new urban development, placing a variety of house sizes in quirky positions. I built on sand as I didn't want to occupy too much farmable land. On day 30, I ignored what I said and immediately built a public square for hearths, wells and speakers as it felt right on top of farmable land. Fast forward to day 31, I built another woodcutter and built some new roads to connect the new houses. Roads give a happiness bonus, which is important. From days 32 to 33, I waited for everything to get built. Eventually on day 34, I added some vegetable farms, as this was one of the final free foods Amevians loved to consume. Day 35, my Amevians were being too lazy, so I placed a workstation to fix this. Day 40, after being bored from waiting for everything to get built, I added a food stall to the new settlement. Day 44, I added another carpenter to start producing warhammers for self-defense purposes. These could then be sold for a lot of money as well, but I wasn't in a good position to mass produce them yet. Day 48, I added a vegetable farm to the north settlement as well. Day 49. To prevent more farmable land from being built on, I added more land into the ocean. Oh yeah, I also added a mini carpenter to deal with maintenance, as the warehouses also consume furniture. Well, they more like use it and then the lizard people accidentally break something, or I don't know. Day 50. Another mass grave, another happiness boost. Day 57, I extended the road through the cave to where there might be a third settlement. This settlement would be used for mining, but would have its own localized food source. Day 58, I did the same thing. Day 63, knowing that I would be invading a lot, I would need a lot of emissaries, so I began a cotton farm. This cotton can be turned into cloth, which can be gifted to your neighbours to boost their opinion of you and to not cancel trade agreements when you invade other people. Day 70 something, I had reached close to 200 population and decided to wait until day 100, where in the next episode I'd have to deal with invasions and other shenanigans. Day 101, I hit 200 population and immediately unlocked the training ground, supply depot and stockade as well as some knowledge points and innovation points. I then build a training camp. I then unlock the smithy, allowing me to produce swords and long swords from just ore and coal that will be made into metal and then will be converted into those. Day 102, I increased the amount of workers fishing to meet the food demand. Day 104, I decided to start a trade agreement with a neighbour to start selling anything that I made in surplus, primarily focusing on the carpenter as I had a lot of forest. At this point, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go for mercenaries or just home troops. I also had to get rid of a third of my storage to be able to afford this too. Day 106, I added another road as this looked nice in this position, as well as a second one. Oh yeah, I also built another training ground as I had the high unemployment, so I had to put those lazy bastards to work somewhere. I then added some more vegetable farms since I was low on food too. Day 107, I added a clay mine to be used in the labs, as well as another fishery. I also added the weaver since the cotton farm was finally finished, after waiting for so long for the Amevians to stop being lazy, get off Discord and, you know, like actually do some hard work. Fast forwarding to day 109, I then added the first lab, which will be one of many. This will provide additional innovation points for upgrades. Day 111, I added another vegetable farm, as well as some more roads. On day 112, I allowed more immigrants to enter, as I was running low on workers. Day 115, another egg farm. And on day 116, as I was building another woodcutter, I got a notification demanding I hand over a lot of fish, some other foods, and 3,000 gold, in which case I kindly declined. At this point, I had about 100 recruits that could easily destroy a ragtag team of 30 bandits, and after some snapping back to reality, I noticed I needed to build more houses, so I placed them randomly throughout the map. I then extended the roads to the lake as the tunnel had been dug out. This area will be used for farming and a stone mine, but later on I'd capture a region that would provide me way more stone, and also Amevians don't like working in stone mines as well, so at least they'll be happier, but that's a spoiler alert. On day 118, I added the first warehouse, some homes, a janitor, and pretty much left the third settlement like that. And oh yeah, the ragtag team was kindly on their way to test my Amevian strength as I was building another training ground. As I was about to finish the training ground, they had already arrived. I was then teleported into a Minecraft flat world with about 75 of my Amevians geared up in only leather armor, despite having the vast amount of weapons that could smash these fools to pieces. Anyways, I positioned my army right in front of theirs, where I commanded them to charge, stunning a few of them in the process. Once in contact, I broke formation to chase them down, in which case there was no point, as I'd already won. I got to keep a lot of their loot and added some more houses in celebration. Day 119, I unlocked herb farms, allowing me to easily make rations with meat, as well as unlocking a stage to boost overall happiness, as Amevians liked watching clown shows. I also noticed no one was working on the third settlement, so I placed down some more roads and pastures and watched as nothing happened, as I forgot to place down a workstation. Day 120, another vegetable farm and a warehouse for the blacksmith, as well as for close proximity to two of the mines. Oh yeah, this was also a good time to add a hatchery, so I wouldn't need to rely on immigration to increase population. That rhymed. On day 121, I got a strange demand and accepted it to boost opinion. On day 126, I added a road down south, as I planned to build more of the city on this vast sand area. On day 127, I added a hearth, well, speaker, and a stage to improve the quality of life in this new settlement, while also forgetting to place down a workstation. On day 128, I decided to add a small iron and coal mine for the metal production. Larger mines require more furniture for maintenance, so I made them small because of this. On day 130, it was a good idea to mass produce wood products, such as furniture, warhammers and shields, as they sold for a lot typically. I built a carpenter for each product. I tried to make a small courtyard, but it did not look so good in the end. Oh well. Day 131, I added some more torches, cause why not? On day 132, it was time to get the bad boy woodcutters out and ramp up wood production, as I was now going to be mass producing a lot of wooden products, despite the fact that Amevians are quite bad at carpentry. On day 133, I added some export depots, and on day 134, I created 2 pastures and a vegetable farm. On day 136, I unlocked a new title, allowing me to further improve food production on the tech tree. Fast forwarding 5 days, I reached day 141, where I allowed more immigrants to enter. Day 143, I selected the items I wanted to sell, as the depots were finally finished. Then I closely monitored the minimum prices, as the more you sell, the cheaper the item becomes. I also made sure I wasn't overselling everything, so I set a limit. Day 145, I added more cow pastures, as shield makers needed leather for some reason. On day 147, I then added some more roads as well as houses. Day 148, I added some more. Day 149, another Globalian pasture, as I still waited for everything else to get built. Finally, on day 150, I placed a workstation at the new settlement, allowing it to be built much faster. Day 157, to earn extra revenue to afford mercenaries, I decided to sell cloth as there was a really large surplus and it wasn't really doing anything. 8 days later, on day 165, I then added a food stall to distribute to the new settlement as well. Day 60, I started 2 new herb farms as herbs were used in ration production. On day 162, I added some more dirt roads and a woodcutter. On day 163, a carpenter as well, but for a localized supply. Day 164, I checked how much money I was making and had slowly been stacking them peas, as you Generation Alpha iPad kids would say. I don't know. On day 165, another farm, another dirt road, still waiting for construction to finish. Then on 166, my city had become so big it started attracting tourists who pay to visit, but I don't like tourists, so screw them. Oh yeah, I also purchased some herbs as I didn't want to wait until autumn or summer to forage the small amount on the map. On day 167, another tunnel and a stone mine was added. On day 169, nice, I started work on the ration maker and created a small army division to raise loyalty on any new city that I captured. Day 170, increased the amount of fishermen and women because I'm not sexist. On day 172, I added a fishery to the lake to prevent building extra haulers to transport food. Speaking of haulers, I then built one at the first settlement so that the carpenters could get stone to produce warhammers. Day 174, I added some more toilets. Day 175. I got this weird event I can't really do anything about, as most of my population were Muslim. There was no alcohol in the city, so yeah, no haram. Anyways, I built another mass grave by the mountains, as I noticed that if there would be any plagues, I'd need a fast location to prevent health from further getting worse. Day 176, I allowed more immigrants to enter. I had noticed my happiness was decreasing, so to compensate for this, I allowed my plebs to consume as much stone as they desired. On day 182, I added a warehouse, only for storing a large quantity of rations for military supplies. I then added 3 army supply depots next to where the weapons, clothes, armor and rations were being stored. This took 2 days of my time. I mean in-game time, so please like the video if you want to see more content like this. On day 184, I was edging, I was eyeing who would be my first victim and decided on the nearest free city, as it had good stone deposits, and no one cares if you capture free cities in this game. Your neighbours wouldn't care at all because they have no relations with your neighbours, hence opinion can't be ruined by invading free lands. Then all of a sudden, they bumped into me as I was travelling, and I applied the same method as before. I charged at them immediately, and they broke formation without even thinking about it. All of a sudden, the city was ours. I then needed to wait for the panic to drop down in the city, but I started taxing stone and money anyways. On day 186, after a large missing workforce and some desertions, I recalled 150 troops back home, but needed to wait 3 days for them to do so. 3 days later, day 189, I could shut off the stone mines, which reptilians hated anyways, as I was taxing all the stone I could ever need. After a few days of waiting, I had about 50% support, and realised I cannot grow the city's population past around 150. Finally, on day 199, I built a smelter and a blacksmith to work on tool and longsword production. This would enable my troops to be much much stronger, and it could also be used as another source of revenue in terms of trade. Day 201. I noticed I had run low on vegetable farms, so I added one, and a Globalian pasture too, to feed my growing population. I always come well prepared. Oh yeah, I also built a tunnel and a large water pump, as I'd noticed there was very rich soil and pastoral land south of the third settlement. The water pump transports water to faraway locations through canals, and is used to increase the production of vegetables, eggs, leather, and other products. Oh yeah, I also tried to make this look natural, but it turned into a complete epic fail. And also, I added another egg farm, cause why not? Might as well start off the episode with a bang. As I waited for all of this to get built, on day 203, I decided to add another fishery, since placing a fishery on ocean tiles gained a very massive boost in production. On day 206, I added another hatchery to boost my sluggish population growth and some more houses. Day 207, upon waiting even further, I extended a road to where there will be more farmland. Day 208, a cow farm was added. I thought this might be a good location to set up libraries as well, if this location only specialised in producing leather, hence I could transport all of the cloth needed for the libraries as well. On day 211, yet again, more roads and houses. Day 214, I unlocked nobilities, whose main function is to be managers to any industry you choose. This greatly boosts the efficiencies of the industries you select, so I chose to boost fish, veg, clay, wood, and leather to help research even more, since knowledge points were based on how much leather you could produce, essentially, and innovation points were based on how much clay you could produce. Day 219, I added some more roads and houses, cause socialism I guess. Day 224, I had gained some innovation points from the labs, and all of a sudden, empires all across my soy face map were asking me if they wanted to trade. Of course I accepted, as this allowed me to sell even more, hence giving myself a larger wallet in return. Day 225, another pasture, and the first industry upgrade, only costing 5 innovation points. Day 226, I placed another road, but this time it went nowhere. Day 131, another pasture as well, as I was still waiting for everything to get built and for my population to increase again. I couldn't rely solely on building a ton of hatcheries, as those took up workers as well, so it had to be a well-considered balance of knowing when to build more hatcheries and knowing when to stop waiting. It was a weird balance. On day 134, I enabled tools to be used in woodcutters, vastly improving efficiency, so I could produce more furniture without needing to place more woodcutters. And I could have even sold my timber as well, but I guess I forgot about that at the time. To ensure 100% happiness, on day 138, I built a shrine to Crater and built a quirky park around it since it looked cool. Look at it, it's sick. Like, you've got trees, even though Amevians don't really care about trees. I mean, I still added it in, but like, look at it, it's like Central Park, but without all of the drug addicts. Wait, no, that's Philadelphia. Whatever, I'm not American. Day 139, I added another weaver to make clothes from cloth, as I plan to be more dependent on leather for libraries. Again, libraries, they require a constant leather source, because historically, parchment paper was made from animal skins that were dried for about 10 days and then stretched, and then they added like treatment and whatnot. So yeah, I needed to rely more on leather, but this could change in the future. It could change in version 70. You never know, it really depends on the feedback. Day 141, more immigrants and a new road. On day 142, it was time to build a prison, since reptilians like law. And ever since I had a metal supply from the last episode, this was the perfect time. I built another lab on day 143, since I still wanted those sweet upgrades in other locations in my overall economy. If you're a capitalist, you're gonna love this game, trust me. On day 243, a market to boost happiness along one of the roads. And on day 245, there was a small patch of rich soil that I missed earlier, so I made sure to fill this in. My ore supply was also low, so on day 146, I sorted this problem out. Day 248, since my herb supply was low, I decided to sort this one out too. And on day 249, I built another tailor to deal with the cotton surplus and aimed to convert that into clothing with a new tailor, and left the old one abandoned. On day 250, I added a gem mine to sell more goods and to earn more Amevian shekels, then added an export depot as gems sold for a lot. Day 251, more immigrants. And on day 252, I added an area for haulers to transport cloth, since for some reason libraries needed them for maintenance. I then added some trees around it, as well as a hearth and a well. On that very same day, I placed down the library as well. Day 256, I added some roads for the large stockade, as well as guard post. There will never be another hate crime committed in my city ever again. Actually, I added 3 more guard posts to ensure full coverage, well, mostly, with trees added as guard posts weren't quirky enough on their own. Day 257, I built a masonry, as cut stone would be needed for statues, embassies, and most importantly, physicians. The most OP way of improving city health. Health becomes worse at higher populations, so unlocking physicians through libraries was also crucial. On day 256, I added some decorations as I still waited. Day 258, I added more immigrants. On day 264, I wanted to see if I could purchase a region, but I was too broke to do so, even if I was earning a lot. On the same day, I hired a ragtag team of mercenaries to take out a neighbour. I also didn't have the population surplus or ration supplies for this as well. So on day 265, I marched into their city and immediately went into battle. It was a close call, but I had managed to take the city and realised I needed a governor as a noble to get more governor points to actually build things, because if you want to improve the city's infrastructure, you need to have enough government points, and you can get this through appointing a noble as a governor. On day 266, I waited for support to increase. I focused on population growth instead, as this region had fertile land. Therefore, it was possible to reach larger populations, unlike the first region that I conquered. On day 268, I tried to reach population of 300 on the newly conquered city by investing in additional region capacity, but this would take some time. Day 272, I added another road. Day 279, a slave trader arrived at my city, but I refused his sale as I didn't want to get scammed. On the same day, I increased leather production, as well as add a globulin pasture. Day 281, yet another cow pasture and another warehouse for easy access to pastures and crops, as there would be future industries in this area that will rely on close proximity. On day 282, I fired the larger group of mercenaries. As I was running low on money, they demanded too much money, and I had a decent amount of support already, so their work was already done. I didn't need them anymore. Day 285, another lab for research, and on day 287, my cotton was still in a massive surplus, so to deal with this, I added another weaver nearby to maybe earn more money for profit. Day 288, another globulin pasture, and some more decorations on day 289. And on day 290, a vegetable farm. On day 291, I decided it would be a good idea to upgrade storage and toilets by creating pottery. Pottery uses clay only, which reptilians love to dig, so I needed to set up a pottery industry right away. Day 292, another warehouse nearby. And finally, on day 299, I had gained 10 innovation and 10 knowledge, to which I improved fish production to gain more food overall. So yeah, that was another 100 days. Day 300. I was at a stage of waiting for my population to increase, while investing in technology for a while. I'm currently limited by an immigration rate of 4.5 per day. So later on, I'll need to expand my hatcheries, and hence needed more cloth and cotton. And after building a few roads and extending canals, I reached day 301. On this day, I decided to add a very huge vegetable farm to keep up with population. Day 306. I invested some technology points into improving herb farms as my ration supplies were becoming low. I didn't want my army to desert, so this was an important choice to make. On day 308, I finally reached 1,000 population, meaning I could hire 5 more nobles, in which I decided to improve herb farms, fisheries, woodcutters, carpenters, and gem mines for additional profit. Day 309. I unlocked tools in workshops, allowing me to increase tool production and other products by 25%. This was huge. Day 310. Another metal smelter for additional tool production. Day 315. I added some more roads. As I waited, I still tried to extend these in a straight line to important locations. On the same day, I added another hatchery to boost population growth further. As you can see, I have 100% happiness, but again, I'm limited by the immigration rate. Day 316. I unlock and build the hospital. The physician was only 200 knowledge points, but I would need to increase my leather supply to unlock this. Day 317. A localized warehouse to store fish, paper, and cloth. I also added a fishery next to this as well, and reclaimed some land from the ocean. Day 321. It was a good time to build an Amevian hatchery, despite having 23 missing workers. Oh well. Day 322. Since hospitals could use opium in treatment, I decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and designated a nature reserve to forage the naturally spawning opium every single year. Although this was a small amount, this would be enough to boost hospital efficiency. This would also mean I wouldn't need to waste innovation points in unlocking opium farms, which costed about 20 innovation points. Day 325. I could also build the embassy, allowing me to boost my opinion rating in neighbouring cities, meaning they were less likely to declare war on me if I got too big. Day 328. I ran out of rations, so I desperately imported some herbs to prevent my overseas army from deserting. Day 335. I added another janitor for maintenance as the 3rd settlement was growing steadily. The next day, I had some workers to start 2 new cow pastures for more leather. Day 338. A cotton farm to supply future weavers in a new settlement, in which I built a smaller weaver to start with, as well as another road. Day 328. I added another road. The next day, I decided to build a bridge to the closest offshore island, as this was a decent location for a large fishery as well. Day 341. I built a paper maker, as in the future schools and administration buildings will need this. Also it sells for a bit. Day 343. Another cow pasture. Day 345. I noticed that one of my regions reached 300 population, meaning that I could upgrade this to tax additional resources. Resources I didn't need to mine or harvest anymore. Problem solved back home, I guess. Day 346. Yet another cotton farm. Day 348. Ever since I was running low on land with rich soil next to all of the settlements, I decided to make a small village to house future farmer workers. This was mostly to expand leather, cotton, and vegetable production. I was sorted in terms of herbs, so I drew out 2 roads, placed a warehouse, janitor, toilets, housing, and a food stall. Oh yeah, and a canal to boost efficiency, as ground moisture determines this. I then placed down the farms and hit fast fast forward. Day 352, I increased leather production yet again and built another library. Finally, on day 355, I reached 20 knowledge points, unlocked the physician, and immediately placed it next to my tool supply. This was a huge win, as essentially this reduced deaths from disease by a lot. Day 356, I placed down another export depot and decided to sell some cut stone in the hopes that this would generate some additional cash. And on the same day, yet another physician, just in case the last one didn't do its job. On day 358, I noticed my tools were running low and decided to fix this by adding a smithy, a metal smelter, and another smithy for longswords, as they were an upgrade from warhammers and could make my troops back home way stronger. Day 361, I noticed the fourth village was complete and added the essentials into its warehouse. The next day, on day 362, I received a message where one of my regions didn't want to provide me with as many herbs anymore. So to avoid an exodus of people from that region, further downgrading it, I was forced to comply with their demands, unfortunately. Bloody unionists. Day 363, another cotton farm and a fishery. Day 368, another weaver was added. Day 369, nice, another road. Day 370, I had noticed that my embassy was up and running and decided to flatter one of my neighbours in the hopes that he could give up one of his regions for free. This would take time, however. Day 371, some more houses. And on day 373, as with tradition, I would invade a territory. So this time I hired some archers, as they were available in the mercenary category in a kite tactic. The next day, this group had marched over to a nearby freelands and kited their enemy for a whole day before winning. On day 375, the city was ours, and I decided my population back home would never need to mine ore ever again. Oh yeah, I also fired the archers as they were too expensive and replaced them with cheaper mercenaries. Day 376, another vegetable farm. Day 377, another cotton farm. The next day, a tiny cow pasture on a little bit of space that I had to nearby, unfortunately. It meant that in the future I'd need to expand this settlement southwards in order to gain greater proximity to pastoral land. Day 379, my coal supply was running low, so I added another coal mine. Day 381, I found a nice spot for a market, so I placed one nearby on the road for extra happiness points. Day 382, I added a massive cow pasture to the new settlement and set up haulers to transport leather to settlement 3. The rest of the meat went into ration production. Day 384, I built yet another weaver, and on day 386, I added a giant fishery to the lake for the new Amevian hatcheries, as there was a lot of space for cotton farms too, and because I was running low on space everywhere. On day 387, a hatchery was built in the 3rd settlement. Day 388, there was a lot of empty space below on the 1st settlement, and in the future I wanted to place a lot of industry here too, so I placed some more houses to start with. On day 389, I also placed a water pump to any new globulin pastures I'll build down south in the future. You may have noticed there are a lot of roads here, and yes, I do plan to expand food production down here as well. In the business, we call this foreshadowing. However, I'd need some time to think about logistics and how proximity played out here. I either could demolish or gentrify the new industries in the 1st settlement and move everyone else down south, or I'd build the new industries down south. I hadn't decided yet. Day 390, a large warehouse for storing eggs, fish, and maybe leather. Day 392, I decided to add some trees to make the place look nice, as I had ample time to kill. Day 394, some more housing and a lab. And after a few days of waiting and adding some more decorations, on day 399, I let some more immigrants in while waiting. In the next episode, I aim to expand settlement 1 and 3 southwards to gain greater access to more farmland and pastoral land. I also want to get to a point where I have hundreds of available workers, not relying on trade or mercenaries.
Day 400, I added some more roads to help visualize how I was going to plan out the city in the future. As I waited for my population to increase, on day 403, I upgraded my farm efficiency. Day 405, I let more immigrants in and built a vegetable farm at the nearest settlement. As I was waiting for everything to be built up, I added a small park with the essential services, including a stage, a janitor, and a toilet right next to it. The following day, on day 406, I added some trees and torches, and on day 407, I extended the canal down to more pastoral lands that had no moisture on it, but would be useful in the future, as in this area, there was barely any land for farming, mostly alluvium soil, which reduces the efficiency of pastures. I also needed more knowledge as well, to unlock more essential buildings, rather than waiting for my population to increase, because I'm a little bit impatient. Day 409, I unlocked a new title allowing me to upgrade some of my nobles. I would increase clay, leather, food, as well as gaining more government points to evolve my captured regions. Day 410, I extended one of the straight roads, but it looked unrealistic to bridge such a long distance. Plus, there was already too many bridges in that local area. I might delete this bridge later, even if it's a nice feature. Day 412. I built another woodcutter as my wood supply was decreasing. Day 413. I built the first of many cow pastures for more parchment for knowledge. Day 415. A small carpenter to keep up with furniture demand, as well as some torches. Day 418, another cow pasture. Day 421, a giant fishery was built and another cow pasture. Day 424, I put some research into improving fishing and leather production. Day 427, I extended the second settlement north by copying over the essential services and placed down some housing. Day 428, some more roads to mark out the locations of massive farms and pastures. Day 429, 2 cow pastures were added for leather production, and oh yeah, a Globulian pasture for food preference. On day 432, after placing down some housing, I also added some more decoration. Day 433, another library was built. Day 434, one of my regions could be upgraded to tier 3, so no longer will my lizards need to mine or ever again. Oh yeah, I also hired some mercenary archers, marched into a free city, and one day later, the city was ours once again. Day 435, I set my taxes to gems, as they sold for a lot back home, continuing the cycle of destruction and rebuilding, continuing the cycle of earning more money, hiring more mercenaries, and taking more cities. The cycle never stops. Day 436, another weaver and some torches. Day 437, some more canals to extend my growing demand for pastures, like a true Texan capitalist. Day 439, another hatchery to boost my aging population. This is definitely not South Korea, but it's one way to basically not rely on immigration. Day 442, some more torches and decorations as I waited. Day 446, I added 2 roads to meet on an island. I don't know, maybe there'll be a castle here. It's a good defensible position in my opinion, but you know, if the enemy invades the city, they'll have to destroy all of the housing and buildings that are in front of it, which is not ideal, but you know, it's a good aesthetic bonus, I suppose. Day 448, another cow pasture. The next day, another library. Day 449, on the same day, I placed down a large warehouse for easy access to future farmland down south on the 3rd settlement. Day 450, I don't need to explain this, you already know what I'm building. Day 451, another hospital to save more lives, I suppose. Day 452, My demand for leather never stops, and it never will. Day 454, some more roads. Day 459, I built another smelter as demand for more tools was higher. Every time I built a new farmland or pasture, I would need additional tools for this, as tools boosted efficiency for all farmland and all industries by 25%. Well, that's because I enabled it to do so, but, you know, that was my choice. Day 460, another lab. As you can see, I'm running low on space. Probably shouldn't have chosen this map, lol. Day 462. I really wanted to be able to purchase a region at a discounted rate, so I donated more emissaries to Jared II to boost his opinion, and I've had this happen in the past where my opinion was so high that I could ask for a region and they wouldn't charge me at all. Day 464. I invested into advertisement to wait less for my population to increase. Day 467. Honestly, the lack of space on this map is so sad. Be sure to hit that like button. Day 468. Some more housing, cause why not? And oh yeah, just like the Dutch, I've reclaimed some land from the sea to fight climate change. Day 470, I got a notification that there was a really cheap leather trader, and like the greedy bastard I was, I accepted. But apparently, this would come with dire consequences. Oh yeah, I also unlocked statues and started placing them everywhere, because that gives an environmental bonus and a boost to happiness to the Amevians and the humans that are in my city. Oh yeah, I also built an insane asylum to deal with all of the Californians, and another carpenter. So with insanity, there is a chance that these people could either freeze to death or get too hot and sweaty and get a stroke. So essentially the asylum drags all of these crazy people into one place and they can get cured. I don't know how it works, but apparently, yeah, it works, so I needed to place one down. Day 471. I unlocked the fight pit, another win for happiness boost. Then on day 472, another library. Day 473, a new road dividing the two soil types next to the third settlement. And oh yeah, I also needed some more clay for innovation on day 474. So I added another clay pit to mine more clay. Day 476, I built another embassy, but larger. This was to conquer the world without everyone getting pissed off at me. Day 477, I add more housing and some essential services. Day 479, another guard post for the new suburb. Day 481, finally built a pump and canal for the new farmland as I struggled desperately to make this look all natural. And on the same day, the first of many pastures was placed for a localized food source. Day 482, another toilet was built. And on day 490, my lust for more colonies had reached a breaking point. I was going to have to take out a useless neighbor of mine who is blocking trade deals to other regions. So I gathered up some mercenary archers, raised my opinion ratings of other neighbors in the region, and proceeded to declare war. 2 days later, on day 492, I had won and set the taxes to gather even more stone than last time. On day 493, a stupid neighbor begged me to hand over 2 regions to him, and I was like, yeah right, sure I'm gonna do that. Just you wait what's coming to you. So on day 494, I also took him out for chatting shite about me. I leave no stone or fool unturned. He deserved it. The next day, I had won another battle and decided to milk their region dry of all their leather, even if they can't produce it well. On day 496, Jared V also asked for my regions, in which I also declined. So on day 498, I fired my archers and replaced them with cheap mercenaries, as support for my rule had increased to a safe level, where there was no risk of rebellion or the region being taken over by someone else. Then I did absolutely nothing on day 499, just to wait everything to settle out. So yeah, those were another 100 days on on the most overpowered map in the game. Day 500, I added another janitor for repairs to the water pump and any future buildings I might place in this area. Day 502, added a weaver to keep up with cloth demand, as I was using it instead of leather to produce clothes. My reliance on leather was becoming more and more, so I needed alternative sources to create clothes, as clothes were also an essential item in the game. Day 505, added another cotton farm for this as well. Day 508, as I waited, I added some more houses by the coal mine to improve the proximity rating, so workers wouldn't have to travel so far in the morning. Typical wages, waking up at 6 AM, am I right? Day 509, I added another vegetable farm. And on day 510, I redesigned the future road layout a little bit, as the triangular spaces were really inefficient in fitting in buildings and maximising space efficiency. Day 512, another Amevian hatchery. Oh yeah, and a mini vegetable farm. The next day, I built another pasture. Day 516, some more houses were built. And on day 517, I decided to make the long bridge look more realistic by filling in 2 islands into the river. However, I don't really think this worked out that well. Day 518, another pasture and another training ground to improve the sluggish conscription rate I was having, even if I was only training troops to only 10%. But I'd soon later realise that there was another slider in the training tab, and that kind of limited how many people I could train across all of my training grounds. Day 523, another pasture. Again, and another one as I waited on day 529. Oh yeah, since my population actually exploded, on day 530, I added some more houses. Day 531, I built another lab, as I wanted more innovation for more upgrades, and built some more houses too. Day 532, could finally build a large library since I had a decent number of leather coming in and a woodcutter to keep up with demand. Day 534, not explaining my greed for leather here, just watch what I build. Oh yeah, I also upgraded pasture efficiency too, as I'd gathered enough innovation points. Day 536, I added some more guard posts around the map as lore was still low, and some trees because they looked cool. Day 537, boring extension to food supply once again. Day 540, I had gathered enough embassy points to boost my opinion rating in all neighbouring factions, so if I declare war on someone, a world war against me wouldn't happen, and as JD Vance once said, I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to prevent the destruction of my fish empire. After this diplomatic voyage, on day 542, I did another warehouse to boost proximity to the faraway farmland. Day 543, another hospital was built, and on day 544, I built a gigachad-sized shrine as I'd noticed the Amevians' happiness rating was getting lower and lower by the day, so building another shrine would improve this rating as there was only 1 or 2 on the map. Day 547. As I waited, I analysed what my Amevians liked in terms of government policy and services. Other than that, I literally did nothing on that day. Day 548. Just kidding. I added another market and a hauler to transport pottery. Pottery would be needed for upgrades and maintenance, and in some cases, Amevians shard so hard they break the toilet bowl, I guess. Finally, on day 554, this is where shit really took off. No pun intended. I had reached a population of 2,200, meaning I unlocked the title of the Korai, meaning I was given a lot of knowledge, innovation, and noble upgrades. This was huge, as I could increase food production for a greater population, add more services to make people more happier and increase industry output, generating more income through trade to splash on mercenaries. I could also unlock bricked roads, increasing foot traffic speed. This road looked sick and Amevians have an 80% preference to it. It also sped up travel times as well, meaning that proximity would be improved. I also unlocked courtrooms, as calling Saul Goodman was also a huge happiness boost. Well, the ability to. After this, I immediately sprinkled some bricked roads around the map. Day 555, I was still doing this, admiring their beauty. Finally, on day 560, my obsession was over and I unlocked opium farming to be used in hospitals. This improved the survival rate of patients to 50% and could be sold for a lot of money as it only grows well in warm climates, which this was. Day 561, I unlocked silicon mines for the same reason, but to make my soldiers high in battle. This is the game's equivalent to steroids. Day 562, the roads were looking more majestic than ever, so I added some more after building a physician. Day 563, added a warehouse and a masonry, as I was going to need way more cut stone in the future. Amevians also liked having cut stone as furniture, but it was too expensive to add for now. The next day, another woodcutter. Day 565. The first stage of gentrification would make way to the city's first courtroom, and on the next day, the demolition of unwanted property was complete, and I built the damn thing. Unfortunately, on day 567, a pandemic had reached the city, meaning I had to enforce a strict curfew or lockdown policy, and also work from home arrangements to minimize the spread. But this didn't work. I had a couple hundred people die, and at this stage, I had built enough hatcheries to actually recover from this quite quickly, but you'll see this later. Day 569, the mass graves were filling up with bodies fast, and on that same day, I added some statues in front of the completed courthouse. Day 570, an export depot for selling more items was added. This would be used to export silicon as well as opium. Day 572, I missed out on another festival due to my civilization not producing any alcohol yet. Bloody infidels. Day 573, I imported over 100 opium to start planting it, as my opium farm had already been finished. Day 575, I forgot to upgrade the nobles for fish, government points, clay, eggs, and more, so I swiftly did this. Day 576, another vegetable farm. Day 581, my population had recovered from the pandemic, so I built another lab to continue producing innovation points for future upgrades. Day 583, my prison population was overflowing, so to solve this, I built another one. As in this game, you can't really get down to the source of the crime, you kind of have to roll with police brutality. Day 585, another hatchery was built. Day 587, it was that time of the month, so I hired some mercenaries, took over one of the last remaining 3 cities in my local vicinity, and one day later, I could tax it for all of its leather, even if it was bad at producing it. Day 589, I built another library in celebration of this minor victory. Day 590, some more trees of course. Day 591, to boost happiness more, I placed a lot of statues along one of the highways because of my massive ego. I wanted people to look at statues of me every day when they go to work, because why not? Day 595, another papermaker, as this can be used in schools for teaching and boosting skills in child workers. Day 596, another tailor was built, and being disappointed that the statues had not been completed by day 600. In this episode, we will discover how not to do diplomacy. We will learn the importance of not pissing everyone off too. So sit back, enjoy, and let's begin. Day 601. I get a strange notification that there's deep dissatisfaction with one of my colonies, so I lowered their tax rates. Day 603. built another opium farm for hospital usage and for exports. And oh yeah, a vegetable farm too. The very next day, another woodcutter and weaver was added. I was also in the process of relocating a lot of woodcutters in order to get more buildable area around the main warehouse for better proximity. Upon completion on day 605, I then added a new waterfront with a road for more gentrification. Day 608, I added another weaver, as I plan to mass produce embassy points through gifting my rapidly expanding list of neighbours some carpets, I guess. Day 610, a small herb farm with the pathetically small amount of land I had left. Then a ration maker the next day. Then on day 612, I expanded tool and metal production to be used on more future farmland, physicians and industry. Day 614, I unlocked the school, meaning I could use indoctrination to very slowly increase the efficiency and skills of my workers in industry, not research, as setting teaching to education was heavily disliked by my population, so I chose indoctrination. Day 615, added another library and a cow pasture. Then on day 618, I had nothing to do, and added some housing in the hopes of improving proximity to some of my farmland. Day 619, another hospital was added. Day 622, another hatchery was built. And on day 625, I added some more torches in the hopes that it would improve my lore and happiness. Day 626, my troops were taking forever to train up, so I added yet another training ground. The next day, the second embassy was built. Day 631, I unlocked the tax collector on the tech tree, allowing me to place down a new building in one of my regions to gain an additional 3.3% tax from all of my regions. Very nice. Day 633, I tried to increase everyone's opinion by donating embassy points so that they wouldn't invade me, as I planned to topple one of the nearby empires on the map that was in my way. Day 634, I received a notification telling me my civilians had found something. Out of curiosity, of course, I accepted, and found out this would make a lot of my population go missing, but in return I'd receive a 10% bonus to everything in my city. A great sacrifice, but at what cost? Oh yeah, I had also decided to invade one of my closest empires at the time. I thought that I had enough embassy points to prevent a world war, but later on you will see that this is entirely wrong. The fight was easy and I quickly took control of their capital city. Only then later I realized this meant that their colonies would turn into free cities, so I had to create armies to capture them as well. I also placed down a tax collector as mentioned earlier, because of the greedy bastard I was. Because of this action, many of my neighbours started getting mad, and as I had just trolled one of their allies, I declined of course, due to insufficient funds. Oh yeah, Sri also asked me for some reparations too, which I could not afford. Day 635, I had another fight with one of the free cities and quickly won and took control, expanding my colonized empire. Day 636, I tried to see how much opinion I could get from my largest neighbor in the efforts that they wouldn't declare war on me, but unfortunately I couldn't do that much. Oh well, glad I had a save as file, just as a backup. Day 637, from looking at most of my neighbors' opinion ratings, they were also negative, meaning the likelihood of a world war was going to break out. Day 638. Finally, I took one of the last remaining free cities, for tax purposes only. I also placed down a school in this region, as this gave a 3.3% boost to all productivity in colonial industries. Day 639. In the efforts of preventing the coalition of the willing from forming, I desperately tried to spend my newly generated embassy points at raising opinion. Unfortunately, on day 641, this didn't work, and all of my neighbours declared war on me. Apart from one, I was in deep shit now. Immediately I scrambled to prepare for a peace deal, still clinging to the hope I would get away with taking out one of the nearby empires. But my opinion rating was still so low, I could do nothing about it. Sooner or later, on day 640, I was attacked by Suri in a surprise attack, and with this guerrilla warfare, I proudly nay-nayed over their corpses thanks to my overpowered mercenaries. The same could not be said for day 601 though, as the largest empire in the region had over 2,000 troops willing to defeat me, and they did. This is the largest issue preventing my further expansion of the empire. Already existing massive empires which make it impossible for you to do anything about it, and I wish Jake fixed it. God damn it, god damn it. Oh well. The fight lasted a day, but unfortunately my kiting archers couldn't make it out alive, and I lost a region because of it. Day 643. The troops stationed in some of my regions were so weak, and I had already taken another defeat because of this massive pig empire. Finally, on day 644, the largest nation proposed I handed over 2 regions in reparations and a lot of my supplies, which I stubbornly refused. This was a mistake, but it was only going to go downhill from here, just you wait. The next day, I had also managed to take over one of my enemies, so haha, got him. On day 646, the same could not be said, as when I was transporting my troops to attack Novik, I encountered a surprise attack and was defeated instantaneously. Day 648, another defeat, another region lost, and over this time period I pretty much lost all of my regions apart from one. Day 651, I did something strange and freed all of my war captives in the hopes that this would offset all the losses in the battle, but this didn't work. Eventually, on day 652, I saw I had basically lost all of my regions and went back into the save file to learn from my mistakes and start again. To rebuild the Amevian Reich, of course. No affiliation with, you know, the German one, but if you know, you know. I didn't record any of the boring stuff, as it was literally me just expanding opinion and population over time. Nothing much happened, apart from me capturing another free land that was far away. I guess to kind of tax more lever, as they had decent pastoral lands apparently, even though they weren't located in any fertile regions. This red terror from the east would be a massive pain in the backside to take out, so my first plan was to capture all of the smaller empires first, while bowing down to the larger one that was to the east. I would have to donate a lot of embassy points over time, meaning that in future episodes I'd have to embassy max my entire city in order to get away with conquering the world. So on day 685, I placed down some more housing as I waited. I had also built another warehouse to store more food in the southern pastures and farms, as the amount of food attracted more immigrants into the city, and that's what I basically did. As yeah, I didn't record this, it wasn't that important in my opinion, it was just waiting and gradually expanding leather production. Day 687, I extended the canals further south as I was running out of nearby farmland. Day 688, I built a new water pump as well to keep up with this farming and pastoral demand. Day 689, another Globalian pasture was built. Day 693, I let more immigrants in as I waited for a siege of another free city to finish. This would inevitably increase the amount of leather I could use. Day 694, another vegetable farm, and you probably know why. Day 697, for future happiness boosts, I decided to start producing alcohol after witnessing a fever dream in other save files about happiness decreasing. This was because my population also liked drinking as well. Bloody alcoholic bastards. Day 698, I built another pottery and a brewery to start this small scale alcohol production on this little available space I had left. Finally, on day 699, the free land was ours, and I made sure to tax the hell out of their leather for more libraries. Day 700, once the tension stabilized, I did such that. Day 700. For some reason, the last 20 days were not saved on the save file. Maybe I forgot to do this. So apology if 2 buildings look different from last time, since day 680. Oh yeah, at the same time, I had OBS stop recording as soon as I entered my city, which was annoying as I had lost about 30 days of footage. However, nothing that much happened there, apart from expanding cloth production and baby makers. Oh well. I always check what year it is at the start and end of every recording. Day 732. I checked my population to see that the leading cause of death was insanity, despite taking large measures to deal with this. Unfortunately, you can't ban Amevians from TikTok. Day 733. Another event occurred, boosting fish production by 30% while also doubling the mortality rate. Basically, I'm doing all of my efforts from the last 30 days. This game, I swear to a fury. Day 735. I added more torches as I'd noticed crime and happiness had gotten worse. Day 736. Added another masonry to keep up with demand and one day provide it to all civilians. If I ever get there. Oh yeah, I'd also noticed that I could tax my leather region more money. I also wanted to be able to recruit from these territories too, but knowing the size limitations of each region, this would not be possible, thanks to me creating a lot of small islands, I guess. Territories on small islands couldn't grow their populations that big, hence you couldn't really upgrade them. And to gain troops from other regions, you need to make sure that your territories have a lot of upgrades to them in terms of population and infrastructure on them. Day 737. I was running low on money and I wanted to increase Warhammer production by accidentally placing a masonry down. Oh well. This lack of money was due to the amount of mercenaries I had on the map, guarding all of my cities, making sure they don't revolt. So over the process of the last 30 days or so, I had been raising up small bands of military units and stationing them, replacing all of my mercenaries. The very next day, I had reached a crucial milestone on my journey by reaching a population of 3,000. This gave me the ability to upgrade all of my nobles and boost the living hell out of all of my industries. Oh yeah, I also unlocked well and half upgrades too, to boost happiness a tad amount. These would require for me to invest a lot in cut stone too, so luckily I expanded my infrastructure for that. I also placed down and upgraded a bunch of benches for this as well. Day 740. Upgraded my first well, now it finally has a stone floor. Oh yeah, I also built a massive library, as I also wanted to unlock the bathhouse. Bathhouses boost health and happiness. The next day, I was running low on cloth, so I built another weaver. Day 742. I extended the canal down south for better pasture efficiency. Day 743. I let in more humans, as I was lacking workers. And I don't remember if I explained why I had humans in my city, but humans are really good at research, so that's why they're in there. Day 745, I could finally afford trade with the large pig empire to the east, but it would require me to give up most of my items in exchange. On the other hand, this was great, because it allowed me to sell more without getting tariffs applied to my goods, hence lowering their prices and lowering my profit. And on day 746, another asylum was built. Day 747, I built a tailor as I was running out of clothes, and the next day, an embassy, despite my lack of workers. Day 749, my Amevians seemed to like alcohol a lot. I was forced to build another brewery, as I also had a surplus of grain that was just sitting around and not being used. Day 753, my city was also looking amazing from above. Day 760. After some time, I gave up trying to unlock the bathhouse and instead invested in lab upgrades and lab tools. This would produce an unholy amount of innovation that can be used to speed up production of multiple different goods that can be used to sell and to also be used by my general population. After that, I upgraded 2 labs to start with, and already noticed the massive benefits of this. Day 761, 2 industrial accidents occurred, setting my population back by a couple dozen. Admittedly, these were also really funny to watch. Maybe I'm just a psychopath, who knows. I was doing everything in my power to boost my population, but unfortunately, this occurred. Day 765. Finally, I could make use of my innovation points even more. Day 766. A vegetable farm was built. Day 767. I unlocked the mechanic, allowing me to produce gears, which sold for over 1,000 denarii each. Very good in terms of profit. Day 768. As my metal supply was running low, I was forced to build a new metal smelter in the mountain as I'd run out of space on the main island. Day 772. Another cow pasture. You know why. Day 775. The world's smallest vegetable farm was also added, as I was also running low on vegetables. Day 778. I'd beaten this record once again, but somewhere else. Day 779. Another day, another hatchery. Day 782. Due to overcrowded prisons, I was forced to build a mini jail. The next day, I decided to bridge over to the nearby island. If my city was getting too overcrowded, I could just place some houses and some industries over there. No problem. But I had no idea if the proximity there would be too bad or not. It was just an idea I was playing around with. Day 784. Added some more statues everywhere. Day 785. My Amevians were still unhappy, so I kept on going. Day 786. Another hatchery was built. Day 788. I looked back to see if any of these decorations did anything this episode, and it did. My statue axis rose by 3%. So on day 789, I kept on going, feeling proud about myself for once. Day 792 was making progress and was going to cover the whole map in torches if I needed to. Also, the stage event was over, which was good for my population, I guess. I could finally return back to normal and keep on growing my population since this event affected my immigration rate. Day 794, I finally upgraded the region and kept trying to grow the population further. Day 795, with all of these upgraded labs, I was going to need much more clay, and I was running low, so I hired more workers to do this. Day 796. I started work on the mechanic in the mountain. You're probably wondering why I don't use Dondorians for their race bonuses. Well, it's because Amevians hate slavery and they hate Dondorians as well. Those two races do not mix, so that's why you've only got humans and Amevians. Amevians and humans also hate each other, but I'm not risking adding in more races. Day 797. All of a sudden, refining tech became really cheap, so I made sure to exploit this if I could wait for more innovation to come through. Day 799. I decided to replace all roads with bricked roads, due to Amevians having a preference to this. Oh well. Bye bye rustic roads. You'll be missed in the name of population control. So that was another 100 days in Songs of Syx. Day 800. As I was watching my Amevian skinny dip in a 2x2 pool, I was still desperate to raise my population. My final goal wouldn't actually be to take over the whole world, as I'd learnt starting on an area with a bunch of small barren islands was a bad idea, as I couldn't evolve any of my captured regions any further than the first level. Day 803. After waiting a bit, I built some canals for future farming. Day 807, built a weaver to keep up with demand. And on day 809, in reaction to this, I also built a cotton farm just in case, whilst fast forwarding. Day 810, a mini Amevian hatchery was built. My population was doing fine, as I had a surplus workforce, but it would be a shame if something would be to happen to this. Day 812, I couldn't risk reducing my workforce further, as other pandemics could happen, wiping out my population, so I didn't want to put a bunch more of my Amevians into the military. Yes, sure, I can train them up, but it wouldn't be worth the population or the workforce. So I went over to one of my colonies that could be evolved, and I started recruiting a bunch of troops in that city. So I built a training ground there to start this process. The next day, I built some more houses. Day 817. The world's smallest embassy was built in the little space I had left, and I was sick of the notifications telling telling me that my embassy points were running thin. This was the strategy for the past 200 days. Slowly gaining embassy points every time my population increased so I could gain opinion and invade other territories. But later on in this video, you'll see that I found another way which was maybe a little bit more easier, but it does require some time to kind of build up, and that was through trade and buying regions with the money that I'd earn in the future. Day 818, built some new roads to a future settlement in the south to expand my food and clay production. After this, I built out the warehouse, then a pump for irrigation. Oh yeah, I also built the canals. The next day, a fishery was also added for a starting food supply, with more houses as well. Day 821, some more roads were added. Day 822, my prisons were becoming overcrowded, so the next day, I built a supermassive supermax prison for all of my most deadly of inmates to keep everyone happy, as if you just keep your inmates inside of a stockade, that wouldn't increase happiness, that would decrease it, because that wouldn't count as someone being punished. They'd just be put in a stockade, which doesn't count. Day 824, a woodcutter and a notification warning me that there could be a future pandemic, as I was slowly building up my population and I didn't want this to be undone, but it looks like that would happen soon. Oh no. So on day 825, I built a new physician just in case, just to boost my health amongst my citizens. Day 827, built a carpenter to produce furniture in a new settlement locally. Then on day 830, it happened. But this time, it was the plague, an even more deadlier disease than last time. Luckily, I spammed the curfew button a lot, and my health rating was still very good, so I only lost about 200 people. Although this would take a couple of years to regrow slowly, I had an issue with my population dying from overheating in insane asylums, so I couldn't do too much to increase my population other than building more hatcheries, which require workers to actually be present, so it's a catch-22 situation. After waiting some time and with over 100 missing workers, on day 841, I built a market to boost happiness in a new settlement. Day 844, I was now down to minus 74 missing workers, slowly making progress. Eventually, on day 860, I noticed that one of my neighbour's realms had collapsed, meaning I could sweep in with my military and mercenaries and take some territory. This was useful as this territory also had some regions on the mainland, although this would be harder as regions on the mainland could genuinely grow a larger military. It would be more worth it, as I was strong enough to conquer them and I was gaining a lot of money through trade as well. However, there was a pig empire to the far west, and I had to act fast, otherwise that empire would take all of the free cities and I'd be left with nothing. Oh yeah, one of these regions was also really good at producing leather, so I needed to act fast too. Therefore, I decided to act, and I hired a bunch of archer mercenaries, marched into one of the cities in my way, and won. I then set the city's tax to collecting ore, and then after that, I basically fired a bunch of ore miners so that they wouldn't have to work in a job they didn't like doing. Day 862, another lizard pasture was built. Day 864, expanded my army to earn more money by firing the cheap mercenaries guarding some of my regions. It's clear I had the ration production to do this as well. Day 868, placed down another Amevian hatchery and on day 873, I expanded my cotton production. Unlike Factorio, you can't rely on mass production in this game. You have to monitor how many workers you have, and by thinking about every time you expand, how much of that population isn't going to be free anymore. I prefer to play this way. Could be wrong. Day 874, a new weaver in a new settlement for the hatcheries. The next day, I built a large hatchery, and on day 876, I was forced to build a janitor on one of my roads, as I'd noticed that a lot of my workshops in the first settlement had high demand for repairs, and you can actually see it's getting all grainy and, you know, there's all this kind of black dots all over the place. Anyways, and finally, on day 882, I started training up small armies in my largest colony. Day 891, built another opium farm for localized hospital usage. By increasing supply without building any haulers, I was killing 2 birds with one massive stone. Sometime later on day 901, I had noticed nobody had claimed the 2 territories that I wanted, so I still had some time. I gathered some mercenaries and marched on to the next free city in my way, and on day 903, with my sluggish band of 15 Crotonian archers, I had captured the city and immediately set it to ore production too. Then on day 904, I did the same thing with another army, and on day 905, I added a spy headquarters to raise loyalty by 10% in all of my regions. Day 906, another Amevian hatchery was built, because my population just wasn't rising fast enough. I understand this takes workers, but, you know, people can stop working in other locations. I genuinely needed more workers at this point. Day 913, I still had absolutely no progress to my population, so I decided to add another hospital to save people's lives, I guess, so they wouldn't die, they'd have a 50% chance of survival. Day 917, I decided to enlist some more colonists into the military. Day 923. As I was hiring my own troops and firing all of the mercenaries, I had become really rich again, so I bought myself my very first private island and set it to clay production, because I fucking love science. Day 926. I felt, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna buy another one and set it to stone production, as my stone supply was running low and I needed it for cut stone. And this was to build more statues so that my Amevians would be happier, I guess. Day 929. I built a massive pottery to deal with all of the alcohol I would need to produce and store in the future. Day 930, this was also joined by the world's smallest clay pit. Day 933, I got into another fight with a free city, and of course won, then changed all of their industries to give me more ore, like a little ore whore, as if I couldn't want any more. Day 934, built a stage and some housing at this new settlement. Day 935, I decided it was time to take these landlubbers on by surprise, and saw that the other pig empire had already conquered one of the free cities to the west, so I was in desperate need to capture this as soon as possible. But unfortunately, the little piggies couldn't run away fast enough from the big bad wolf. So on day 936, I was defeated. Humiliated by this, on day 939, I returned with some new colonists and with much stronger archers. The colonists had no chance, but the land was ours, so ahoy. Wait, I didn't even reach it? It was another free city? Well, I be damned. Anyways, on day 943, I actually did fight the right city this time, and they immediately surrendered upon seeing me on the battlefield. Damn, am I really that ugly? On this city, due to the amount of land, I could upgrade it multiple times and tax it of all of its leather. I would then eventually fulfill my Amevians' furniture demands by also giving them access to leather, as leather was no longer that scarce. I was raking in a couple dozen every single day. Day 968, built an IPA microbrewery and a nursery right next to each other. The next day, a massive Globdian pasture on the east bank of the river. Day 978, some more housing. And on day 983, after a long period of time, I decided to get more innovation by building another lab. Day 985, I also built a physician in the new settlement too, even though I was lacking workers. Then on day 986, some sweet upgrades to metal smelters, weavers, and breweries. Day 987, built some more canals for future farmland, then researched for more tools to be used in industry to further create more tools. Day 989, earned enough fat stacks again and bought another island, this time also producing clay for that sweet technological innovation. After placing down more statues like a boss, on day 991, a large carpenter was built in hopes of providing my population with a stable furniture supply in use of their furniture. So I basically would be able to give them access to furniture as furniture, if that makes sense. Something I'd also noticed was that on day 995, I was getting hella close to unlocking the administration building, something I've only ever dreamed of, and something that I've only ever achieved in older versions of the game, where the game was a lot easier and the boundaries for unlocking things were a lot lower. So to speed this up, I built a large Amevian hatchery. The next day, a toilet, and an event I decided to be a buzzkill about, and did nothing. My population wasn't growing fast, so on day 997, I built another hatchery. Finally, I spoke too soon. My wishes had come true, and on day 998, I built the city's first admin building. I waited all night to watch this get finished, like a child waiting on Christmas Eve for Christmas Day. I was truly soy-facing at this moment, due to the fact that this would give me a 5% boost to everything. Yes, everything in the city. Not just industries, but farms, but mines, everything. And on day 999, I built another one too, to relive that experience all over again. In celebration of day 1000 in Songs of Syx, I rewarded my city with just a paper maker. And this is where I'll leave the tale of the Amevian people here. This will probably be my last video on this city, but I might show it on a few live streams, so please be on the lookout for that if you're interested. Also, these videos do actually take a lot of time to create, and it was kind of hard balancing my own personal time with creating these videos. Like, I do want to go outside, so apologies if they've not been done every single day. I'm also not used to creating a lot of videos as well, so I did my best. Eventually, the day after this video comes out, I'll probably make a movie with all the episodes compiled together, edited down, so that you don't have an intro every single time, like it's a new 100 days. I also didn't like how some of the city turned out. For instance, I had a lot of diagonal roads. I was trying to be organic, but in some areas, it just seemed like a waste of space. And, you know, at the beginning it worked really good, but when I tried to squeeze things in, it kind of ruined how the city looked. Maybe in the future I'll try an easier map where there's more space and less forests, definitely, because forests, they're not really good for farmland or pastures. But until next time, I hope you guys have enjoyed this whole majestic journey, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.